Okay, so our session today is on the how you can plan and facilitate a strategic planning session. Welcome to this particular session. If you can hear me and you can see me very clearly, please type yes in the chat box. Please confirm I'm audible and I'm visible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you. This session is designed to enable us to be able to guide an organization or a team or a unit or a department into the future so you can successfully be able to land that particular future without issues, with limited issues at that point in time. We shall be looking at how you can plan the session and then how you can facilitate the session as the case may be. In the next set of minutes, we will be able to go through the discovery phase, what it is, the discovery you go through, the retreat itself, the documentation that is required at the end of the retreat, and then how you can implement the outcome of that particular retreat. My name is Joel Omike, and I work with P4PE Institute. P4PE Institute is a consulting firm that partners with the executives who are looking at the future to see how they can grow their businesses. Our expertise is focused on leadership assessment, leadership development, and leadership coaching. We engage executives, we engage board members, and we engage teams in order to help them to accelerate what they are working on. We also help organizations to shape their culture and to build the business in such a way that they can take advantage of the digital space that we currently have. At the end of the day, team members that we engage with experience great leadership, effective teams, they thrive, they are future focused, and they are ready to achieve great results at that point. Please ensure that your system is up and running very well. Look at your video, look at your Zoom microphone in case if you need to share some thoughts. If you want to ask a question or you want to contribute, try and chat on the chat system now and see if you can successfully be a part of this conversation. Feel free to unmute yourself and say hi to test your audio and your own microphone. All right. And ensure that your internet speed is at least 20 megabytes. This is one of the best ways to enjoy this particular session at this point in time. And finally, although it's a very short session, we're here for just 2 hours. If you experience fatigue, which is natural with virtual sessions, feel free to stretch, right? Get up, stretch on where you are, stretch, and get the blood flowing again. And then you can come back and continue to be a part of the session. This session is being recorded. And at the end of the session, those who are able to participate in it will have access to the replay of this particular session. Without wasting much time, let's get into our conversation. Like I said earlier, my name is Joel Omike. I've had an interesting career in the past 20 years, engaging executives, driving business growth. I've been involved in a lot of consulting projects. I'm a trusted advisor. I'm a certified business value builder, and I'm a global HR transformation specialist. I speak on most forums and help executives to advance their business and to be able to achieve great results. Talking about this particular session, why are we here? Why is it important for us to consider the concept of strategy, being able to run your own strategy and lead your own strategy? First, a little understanding on why business strategy is important. You know, today, the world is changing very, very fast. The business environment is going through a VUCA scenario, and things change consistently. People sometimes think that strategy is mystical. It's something that you can't understand. It's something that is left only for the eggheads. It's something that is left for some people who have a crystal ball as the case may be. Business also is chaotic, right? Once you think you're ready for something, directly the next day, a competitor or an external environment, something just sweeps you off your feet and things change at that point in time. Competition also is not friendly. It's a dog-eat-dog environment out there. It's either you take or you're taking. If you're slow, you will not get anything left behind for you to achieve at that point. So the context of business strategy exists in a space where there's a mindset that affects it, and there's a limited result that some people are getting from it. Interestingly, there's an understanding that says that 90% of strategy fails. If this is true, why do organizations still conduct business strategies? Well, clearly, strategy helps you to put your organization in the future in that particular future. The organization is achieved at that point in time, so you can achieve and then get what you want from that point, as the case is. What are we going to cover in our conversation today? We shall be looking at 5 different things. First, why organize strategy retreats? Why are teams interested in running strategy retreats at the departmental and the operations levels, as the case is? Why are corporate organizations running retreats, as the case is? Why do board members organize and engage in a strategy retreat? We shall look at some of these. We shall also tear apart the strategy retreat and look at it step by step. What are the various requirements in order to achieve strategy? That's, again, like we said, 90% of strategies fail. So one of the major reasons why strategy fails is the absence of disciplined execution. So we shall also look at strategy execution. It's not enough to put the strategy in place. What do you do to ensure that that particular strategy is also successful? Then we'll look at a few steps that will guide you to ensure that that particular retreat becomes a success at that point. Finally, we'll consider the 3 options of running a strategy session. 1, DIY, do it yourself. 2, do for you, get a consultant to do it for you. All right. 3, do with you, get someone who will work hand in hand with you to ensure you deliver that particular strategy. So we'll look at those 3 and look at which model fits what kind of organization, which one will fit you more effectively at that point in time. All right. So let's start off with the first one. Why strategy retreats? Why do we organize strategy retreats? For one thing, a strategy-focused retreat provides time for team members to unplug, to take a step back from the normal grind of work activities. It's what we refer to as timeout, right? For the team to sit down, to pause from putting up the fires, running around, trying to make the business work, as the case is. It is time for them to take a focused look at the direction that the team is going at that point in time. If it's an organization, it is time for the organization to look at the way it is growing, the way it's expanding, the direction it's going at that point in time, and then ask itself, is this the direction that we really want to go in? If it is, are we moving fast enough in that particular direction? Interestingly, the effort to run a strategy retreat will help you to look into the future, review projects and commitments that team members have, and also look at the future plans that you have. So the retreat will create an opportunity for you to reassess the team. Is the team in the right direction? Is the vision the right vision? Are we competitive enough to deliver results? Each year, new competitors show up in the field, and as they show up, they bring new value add to the market, as the case is. For each value add that appears to the market, your own value is diluted by 1 step. So to what extent have you dropped in the value provision in your market at that point in time? So there are a lot of things in life that we cannot control. The future is one thing that is full of uncertainties, and no organization has full control over the future. However, you can be able to exercise some measure of foresight and plan ahead and be ready just in case if the future comes based on the way you have performed it. Now, when it comes to strategy retreats, the important thing to note is, are you driving your market? Are you driving your environment? Or is your market and your environment driving you at that point in time? So which of them is happening that is affecting the way you're progressing at that point in time? So drive or be driven. If you passively approach the future, you will be part of someone else's strategy. But if you're actively approaching the future, you take ownership of your own future, and then you move and deliver significant results at that point in time. Now, if you're actively navigating through various threats, various risks, vulnerabilities, strategic issues at that point in time, you will notice that it is not easy, that it is difficult for you to achieve great results at that point in time. But being able to create opportunities and identify your direction would help you a lot. How do you achieve this? It takes a lot of discipline. And this particular discipline will help you to work harder, to squeeze more, to achieve more, and also ensure that there's a periodic strategic review that goes on within your organization to deliver the result that you expect. But it takes a lot of courage to be able to do this. This particular courage comes from a deep-seated understanding of the fact that you cannot do this alone. So a leader has to have the courage to be able to call his team out, to shut down operations of business. I tell you the truth, last year, somewhere in December, January, and February this year, we had about 3 different strategy retreats. And one of the organizations, they literally shut down the entire office, all right, and left for 2 days in order to ensure that they think into the future. They shut down Thursday, they shut down Friday, except for things that can be addressed on the phone. Everything office-based were shut down. That leader put his foot down because he wanted to peer into the future with his team. So it takes a lot of courage for an executive to say, I may lose transactions of 1 day, transactions of 2 days, but I want to focus into the future. So a strategy retreat allows the team to recalculate, reformulate, and make adjustments in direction, and then go after it at that point in time. Now, a reviewed and refreshed strategy will give you exactly what you need to look into that particular feature. It will help you to be able to project into the future without the occasional issues that you have at that point in time. So it helps you to plan very well. This is why it's important for you to step backward and take a look at your future and see how you're making progress at that point in time. And the second conversation is on strategic planning process. What exactly is the process of planning strategically to be able to deliver the strategy of the business at that point in time? Your strategy planning process involves quite a lot of things. And before we start it, we're going to just quickly watch a video. And in this particular video, you can see an understanding of how this particular strategy planning process goes at that point in time, and see how you can benefit from this particular area. I'm going to play a very quick video. This video is about 5 minutes. It shows you why strategy is important, what questions strategy answer, and how you can deliver results in that particular area. Let's take a look. Please confirm you can hear the video and you can see the video. Please confirm you can hear and see the video. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. So let's continue.
At its core, strategy is a process of collective inquiry. You're trying to answer four questions. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? Why? How do we get there? Developing a strategy boils down to answering these four questions. That's it. If you spend half an hour at your desk answering these questions to the best of your ability, you have successfully completed a strategic planning process. It doesn't require a special skill set or a convoluted process. However, developing good strategy is a craft, and like all crafts, it takes lots of practice to do well. Furthermore, it's not just something you do once and then you're done. Thinking and acting strategically needs to be embedded in your day-to-day work. So what makes a good strategy? A good strategy outlines a vision and a clear set of priorities. This includes what not to do. A good strategy also provides principles or guideposts that help you make good decisions about how best to achieve your vision and priorities. Think of it as a kind of compass. These navigational aids are especially important in the heat of the moment, when stress and other factors may lead us to make moves that run counter to our longer-term goals. Finally, a good strategy tells a story. It has all the elements of a story, including characters, a setting, a plot. Like a good story, a good strategy is emotionally compelling. It's often more about the questions than the answers. Good strategy is not a recipe. Context matters, not just for the strategy itself, but for developing the strategy. Your group's size, its stage of development, the competitive ecosystem, and so forth. What one group does to be more strategic won't necessarily work with all groups. Good strategy also isn't a one-off. This is the biggest mistake groups make when it comes to strategy. They develop one, and they think they're done. To actually become more strategic, you have to constantly revisit and refine your strategy. How do you develop a good strategy? First, remember that the goal of a strategy isn't to have a strategy. It's to act strategically. You want to achieve your vision in a way that's consistent with your values. You want to move from a place where everyone is operating on their own individual assumptions and moving in their own ways, to one where everyone has a shared understanding and is moving in alignment with a shared intention. Simply having a good strategy isn't enough to make sure that you and your group act strategically. In a way, this is good. You don't have to wait forever to develop the perfect strategy, because that's not how it works. But it also means that developing good strategy is having a learning process in place, where you're constantly going through cycles of aligning, acting, and reflecting. The more you do this, the more you build up your muscles for both developing strategy and for acting strategically.
Okay, so thank you very much. So let's pause the video there. What are the 4 different questions that we learned from here that strategy answers? What are the 4 questions that your strategy retreat must answer? Can you remember from what the video said? There are 4 critical questions that must be answered. Yes, Kemka, go ahead.
Okay, so the first question is, where are we now? The second is how, then where do we want to go and why?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, Udua collaborates. Yes, thank you very much. Where are we now? That's always the first question to ask, because you can't progress in any direction until you know where you are. So it is called situation check, right? Or status quo check. You must check that. 2 is now the future, the vision. Where do you see yourself? Where do you want to be in that particular future? Question number 2. And then question number 3 at that point in time. Question number 3 says, how do you bridge the gap? How? Do you bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to go to? And then the last question is, why is it important that bridging that gap must happen for you to be able to achieve it? Some other people ask the question, how are you currently doing? But those 4 questions, whenever you organize a retreat, if you can answer those 4 questions, retreat is done. And that's why he said that makes it a good strategy. But he said it is not enough. You must then sweat it and ensure that it's in alignment with every other person and every team member in the organization at that point in time. All right, thank you. That's particular feedback. I'm sure you have access to the full video at the end of this particular session. The point is that when it comes to strategic planning, there are 3 sections that are very important. One is the planning principles that are involved in it. Secondly is the process that you go through in being able to achieve this, and then the strategy execution at that point in time. Let me look at your planning process. The planning principles simply says that if you're going to plan for a future, you must be clear what that future is. And there's what we refer to in consulting as MVV. We refer to it as MVV, which is mission, vision, values. Every organization must have an MVV. And it is not enough to just write it and put it on the wall or get staff to recite it like a national anthem. Our MVV is or defines why we are in business and what we are doing in order to achieve that particular reason why we're in that particular business. So your mission creates clarity why you're here, why the business is set up, what services, solutions, and pains in the industry that you are addressing. Your vision, on the other hand, is futuristic. It is saying, what will the organization look like in the future? Where do we see ourselves tomorrow? And the vision is usually a little bit farther away, right? And it is not easy to achieve. If not so, it will not be a vision at that point. Then the third one are the set of values, the pillars, the foundations that guide our behavior in that particular organization while we are living the mission of that particular organization. According to the proverb here, it says, if you don't know where you're going, then any path will take you there. If you don't have a mission and you don't have a vision, then it doesn't matter what you do in business. You're just transactional at that point in time. Another thing for us to chew about is when you're considering the strategic intent of the organization as it relates to what the organization does, the activities the organization does at the corporate level and also at the departmental level, maybe HR, finance, operations, IT, all right? At the corporate level, your focus is the corporate goal, and you should spend 80% of the time on your corporate goals. Then about 20% of the time should be spent on reactions, reacting to industry, reacting to competition, reacting to regulators, reacting to the external environment. Because if you plan very well, you think it through into the future, you notice that there's almost nothing you did not plan for at that point in time. So you can then spend time executing your plan, 80% of your time. That is when you think it through as much as possible. Same thing too at the departmental level, at the SBU level, as the case is. Instead of paying attention on low priority tasks, paper pushing, process issues, and stuff like that, you focus on helping that particular unit, that department, achieve the goals that will drive the corporate goal at that point. And that is what we refer to as being able to focus on the planning principles. So plan in such a way that you spend your time executing and not reacting, as the case is at that point. So let's look at the five steps when it comes to your planning. The 5 steps when it comes to your planning. The first step, which is the planning phase, right? Or the planning base, is where you answer that question. Remember, the video says that question is, where are we now? That question is asking, what is your current profile? As an organization, as a department, as a unit, as an individual, So when you go for that corporate retreat or for that retreat at that point in time, the question we're asking all of us is that where are we now? An example of where we are now, what's our balance sheet size? What's the total number of customers we have? What's the total number of transactions we are getting on a daily basis at that point in time? What's our turnaround time? What's our uptime for our IT? What's our attrition rates? People resigning from the organization. Those are the current situation, the situation in that organization at that point in time. And you have to make some assumptions because sometimes you may not have all the details. At that point in time, when you're also checking where you are, you'll be doing external and internal analysis. Most of the things I've mentioned are internal analysis, but there are external analysis. What is government saying? What is regulation saying at that point? What is the economy like? What's inflation like? What is FX like? All of these are external things that might affect your line of business. What is competition doing? Right now, we have a lot of flooding scenarios in a lot of states across the country. People who have businesses in those particular areas might not have planned for flood, but now it has hit us. That's the current reality. And that flood will not stop overnight. So if you do business in that area or part of your operations takes you to that particular area, to what extent have you been grounded to a halt? These are examples of considerations you will check at the beginning. And you'll check two things: historical analysis. First, historical analysis is asking inside the organization what has happened in the past. In the past 1 year, what's our sales record? What's our finance record? What's our production record? What's our asset utilization level, as the case is? What's our capacity utilization level at that point in time? What are the issues we are grappling with? Those are historical analysis. You also do environmental scan at that point in time. So challenges, you will need to challenge conventional wisdom to be able to understand some of the things where you are, right? And the idea behind this initial assessment is for you to provide insight into the future of what is possible, because it will then guide you into projections. Oh, if this is what the past looks like, it is possible that this is what it will look like tomorrow at that point. It also helps you to identify your strengths, your weaknesses. What are your opportunities and your threats? AKA your SWOT analysis at that point in time. So this is the first phase of your planning. You will work with your team members. If possible, share papers around to all the team members who came to that retreat. Let them write where they think we are currently. Before the retreat, we will have asked various department heads who have access to data to come and share with us where we are currently. So it will be part of the agenda of that particular retreat. Second consideration is, what kind of results do we need? Remember, where do we want to be? Now we know where we are. What's our vision? What do we want? What do we want to change from current into the future? And this is where you begin to look at your vision, your mission. Most strategy sessions do not create visions. Most strategy sessions do not create missions. But if you're starting off at the beginning, there may be need for you to put a vision in place. And so you will vision together, you create a mission, you create your values at that point in time. In some cases where the mission, the vision, and the values are there, you validate them. You ask questions around, is our vision still valid? Do we think we should continue to pursue this vision? Are we still in the right business? This is our mission. This thing we're doing, are we still currently in the right business? Or should we pivot or change what we're doing small at this point in time? All right. These are things you consider in phase 2 of your strategy planning process, because you begin to ask the questions about the future. So some of the things you'll be looking at is, what is the components of our vision statement? If it exists, you look at the vision statement. Okay, the vision statement says we are going to be number 1. So part of your strategy will be, how do we ensure we are number 1? Your vision statement says we are going to be present in all geopolitical zones in Nigeria. You begin to ask yourself right now, what locations, where are we and where are we not at that point in time in those particular geopolitical zones? Our mission says we are the best employer, or we are the employer of choice. Okay, fine. So what does it mean to be an employer of choice at that point in time? Do we have the best talent? Do we pay the best talent? Are we the high-paying organization in our industry? What's the employee experience within the organization? These are some things you begin to check in your mission and in your vision and in your value statement. At the end of this conversation, you will extract what we call objectives. Our objective is to be number one. Our objective is to be the best organization where staff can come to thrive and grow in that particular area. So that becomes where you want to be in the future at that point in time. The third stage of your planning cycle is for you to look at how, right? How will you achieve where you want to be? How do you want to achieve it? This is where the strategies begins to come into place. You begin to put strategies of how you're going to achieve it. What are the performance indicators to show that you're progressing towards that area? So you begin to put those things down. We shall move at 90%. We shall grow by this. We shall expand by one location every quarter. You understand? You begin to put those things in place and itemize them down as the things you're going to do in order to achieve the results that you expect. Please note, at this juncture is also where you put your KPI. How do we measure success for the organization? Because it's at this phase when you're planning the how that you plan the measurements of that particular how, all right, and how we're going to achieve it at that point. Now, up until now, everything you've done is on paper. Now it's time to plan for implementation. It's time to plan for when we go back to office. How are we going to operationalize this particular strategy that we have put in place? This is where you begin to put the tactical plan in place, right? Specific task, responsibility level. Which task are we going to do?
No, I won't forget you inside.
We're going to hire more staff, all right? We're going to hire more staff. We're going to get more team members involved. We're going to buy more marketing cars. We're going to do email promotions. All of those are called action plans. The next question is, who will do it? Who has the responsibility for those particular things? When will they be done? You'll not be talking about where our plan for the future is expansion. To expand, we need more staff. And then we'll say HR should recruit staff for us. When should HR recruit staff? We're looking at expanding in 2023. But the staff for expansion, as at May, June, July, August 2023, HR has not recruited them. This is why it's important that you not only put what you should do, but when it must be done and who is responsible for it. Accountability is critical for you to be able to achieve those particular results. If possible, also detail what the outcome will look like. Detail what the end result will look like. If this action plan is executed, what will the outcome look like at that point? But if you notice here, we have indicated contingency plan, because sometimes your plan of action may fail. There's a particular organization with these strategies for, and in that particular organization, they have a model, even before we came to them, of planning 4 strategies or 4 action plans. So if this is plan 1 or plan A, what if plan A fails? There's a plan B, there's a plan C, there's a plan D at that point in time. And in their life cycle and experience, they say there have been cases when they have used up to their plan C. When plan A failed, plan B failed, and plan C failed, and plan B failed, and so they used up to plan C. Imagine if they didn't have contingency plans. That their strategy plan will have failed at that point in time. So who must do what? It must be clear at that point in time in order for us to be able to achieve the results that we expect to achieve at that point in time. So there must always be alternatives. There must always be alternatives of how to progress, how to advance, so you don't get tied down at any point in time within the organization. Now let's look at the fifth one. The fifth one is your review phase. Now, after you have put things in place, right? You've planned, you've set where you want to achieve, you put the implementation plan in place. It is time for you to begin to monitor. The review phase is about monitoring. How are we currently doing? Remember the 4 questions we spoke about earlier. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? How will we get there, right? How are we going to achieve that particular result? How are we doing at this point in time? So monitoring, you must determine monitoring at different levels. There's monitoring at the executive level, there's monitoring at the departmental level, and there's monitoring at the team level or at the execution or implementation level at that point in time. How do you want to monitor? weekly reports, monthly reports, MPR meetings, as the case may be, exception reports, all right? So you can monitor by reports. You can also monitor by periodic reviews, all right? And regular check-ins at that point in time. And then put some controls. Those controls will help you to understand when things are going off the cuff too much, we can instantly kick in our contingency plan in order to address that particular issue. Okay, so your control system is very, very critical, very, very important to let you know when you're going offline at that point in time. And then once you put your control in place, you also say this is the critical level. It's like when you're driving your car and you have your temperature indicator. Once you begin to see, usually it's always in the middle. I don't know what the middle rating is. Maybe it is 80 degrees or something like that. It's always in that particular middle. And then sometimes when the car is overheating, you notice that it begins to rise a little bit. Do you stop the car when it starts rising? Some people will park the car and start like notice an anomaly. But most people will continue to drive until it enters the red zone. And then they will park at that point in time. So what's your tolerance level when you're monitoring? At what point in time will you call for instant meeting to address anomalies at that point? So it must be clear as you set your review sessions at that point in time. This is what is expected for you to achieve your strategy session. Feel free to ask any questions, send any chats in case if you need clarity in this particular area. So this is like the roadmap that session, that retreat must address. Take a moment, I'll leave the screen on briefly. Take a snapshot of this particular screen, save it on your phone. In anywhere you find yourself that a strategy session is going through, ask yourself what stage are we in that strategy session based on this particular map that we have stated in this area. And that will help you and guide you on how best to support that particular strategy process. Let me narrow down this planning process a little bit shorter in terms of activities, so we can address them in the way they're supposed to be done very well. Ideally, in your strategy program, there's formulation, development, implementation, and review or evaluation at that point in time. So what are these for? At the formulation phase, just like we discussed at this point in time. At the formulation phase, this is where you develop your mission, your vision, and your values. Or this is when you validate that your mission, vision, and values are still accurate. They are still tenable. They are still useful. All right? It still drives the organization. We feel passionate about it at that point. This is also the stage where you specify your core strategy, the core objective of what you want to achieve, and you establish the strategic goals that the organization wants to run at that point. Some of the things you must know to achieve this. One, what business is the organization in? So industry knowledge is very critical. This is why whenever we go for strategy session, we always find or call one consultant or one expert to give us access to data, to come and tell us what is happening within the industry, within the economy at that point in time, because you need insight on what is happening before you can establish your strategic goals. Two, you must be aware of when it is ready, when your mission and your vision is due for change, when it has gone stale. It's like Who Moved My Cheese, right? In that particular book, they said you should learn how to smell the cheese to understand when that particular cheese has started going stale. Is our mission still useful? Is this still driving us at that point in time? It's critical that you're able to examine those and then be able to deliver results in that particular area. Then how and when are we going to communicate our mission? If we came up with a new one or adjusted the existing one, when would we communicate it? To what extent are we going to communicate it? These answers must be provided during the formulation stage. Second phase of your strategic planning session is what we call the development phase. Now, in this particular phase, this is where you begin to look at your short-term and long-term objective. You see, the goals and the objectives you set in stage one, you now break it down into short-term and long-term. Short-term, less than 1 year. Mid-term, 1 to 3 years. long term, 3 to 5 years and above at that point in time. You begin to break them down at that particular way to ensure that there is clarity on how you're delivering on this particular area as much as possible. Okay. The second thing in the development phase is for you to put together your SWOT analysis. During this particular session, give every team member a sheet of paper or a stick-on paper and maybe break them into groups. If you're a large team, right? Break them into groups of 3 to 10 as the case may be. Let them go and brainstorm. Let this team brainstorm on strength. Let this team brainstorm on weakness. And then let them come back to the major house and then share their learning. And as they are sharing, other team members can add their voice or critique what has been said at that point in time. Remember to also do your environmental scan. Remember the environmental scan, your pest analysis, your political analysis, your economic analysis, social analysis, technology analysis, and if you can, legal analysis and also ecological analysis at that point in time, to be able to understand what is happening around you and how these things are affecting the results that you're getting at that point in time within your line of business. Then align your internal systems and business units and ensure that all the functioning supporting strategies are in place. What are we talking about? So if we're talking about increasing production, right, you'll now be looking at finance providing sufficient funding for the production team. If we're talking about expanding sales, we're now looking about HR providing more team members in order to drive sales growth at that point. You see that each unit in the organization must be able to support another unit in order to deliver results. At the end of the strategy planning, no silos. All team members, hands on deck, must be interconnected in order to deliver the results. So for anything your strategy sentence or element says, you ask yourself, which team members in the organization? If you're doing a departmental strategy, which subunit in the department? If you're doing a strategy in maybe a finance strategy, which one is for accounts receivable? Which ones is for payables? Which one is tax implying? Which ones are for pricing? Which ones are for financial analysis and reporting at that point in time? So for each element, you know, understand that each team member will contribute to drive it at that point to deliver the results that is expected. If you're doing a corporate strategy, then you're looking at what is required from finance, from HR, from IT, from logistics, from supply chain, in order to support the main value chain of the organization. Because your main value chain in organization most times is your R&D, your production or operations, your marketing, your sales, and after sales service or customer service, as the case may be. This is majorly the 5 areas that are the core of most businesses. The rest units in the organization play supporting roles to those particular 5. So you ask yourself, this strategy we put in place during that particular session, which of the other supporting departments are required to provide support in that area? You cannot be talking about production units and then our purchasing department, those who are in charge of procurement, are slow in procuring. And so regularly we have downtime because raw materials or spare parts are not available at that point in time. You notice that we're not working in sync at that point in time. And then you come to your implementation. Now, in planning for implementation, you now take that your short-term and long-term objectives and break them down into action plans. Specifically, what are we going to do? Step 1, step 2, step 3. And you allocate budget. This particular step we're going to do, this is the budget for it. We are going to benchmark staff salaries to ensure we are paying according to industry standard. So action point, salary survey. Next action point, review of salaries. Next action survey, board sitting in order to sign off on new review salaries. And then you put dates on it at that point in time. Then we can quickly follow through at that point in time. Or perhaps the action plan is expansion. So, okay, we are opening a branch in Kaduna. So action point, our GIS, internal department, we will go and set up a location, find the location, rent the place, and furnish the office at that point in time. HR is going to hire the branch manager, hire the staffing in that particular area. HR is going to work hand in hand with the current branch support team in order to find out who will be deployed to that particular area while we are recruiting other staff from outside. Those are examples of action points, and the exact dates and the resources required to make them happen are put in place at that point in time. Our IT department are expected to deploy 7 laptops, a server in that particular location, network in that particular area, and communication devices. Those are examples of clarity in the plans. It's not just at the end of the strategy, we are going to open a branch in Kaduna and then we all go home. It won't happen like that overnight. You notice that we're busy pursuing individuals in order to get that thing done at that point in time. Then once you're done, you make plans to communicate your new strategy to the entire workforce. The mistake we make is that strategy is designed by a set of few persons. If it's a department strategy, maybe the head of the department and 2 or 3 of the senior people, they are the only ones that understand and know the strategy. The rest of us are not aware of what is that strategy. Sometimes the strategy comes in bound volume of papers, documented page by page, right? And we do not transfer it in terms of communication. Meanwhile, those who are going to execute the strategy are the guys in the field. So it's important to make sure about your plan. If it means calling village meetings, periodic emails, regular town hall meetings, regular check-ins, right? Or business meetings between the MD and the various location leaders, it is critical that that communication is. It is better to err in over-communicating than in under-communicating your strategy. So very critical for you in that area. Then the last one is reviewing your strategy at planned intervals, bi-monthly, monthly, quarterly, half-yearly. You must sit down together again to look at your strategy and look at the numbers that you're getting. If possible, check your SWOT again. Has our SWOT changed? Because this strategy was created based on the SWOT of yesterday. If the SWOT has changed, has it affected our strategy at that point in time? Then you measure and track performance. You can measure your performance using the management by objective or key result areas or OKR or the balance scorecard. Use any model or any tool that your organization understands or your team understands that is clear to everybody, and then use it at that point in time. We usually say that it is not always a good thing to deploy a new strategy and a new performance tool at the same time, because you'll be getting people, forcing people to learn the strategy and forcing people to learn the performance tool at that point in time. It can create some confusion. And sometimes we channel all the energy on the performance tool and then leave the strategy that we're supposed to drive at that point in time. Remember, your performance tool is an enabler, a guide to ensure the success of the strategy at that point. But what if you now discover after your analysis, after your review, you notice that we're supposed to be heading north, but suddenly we're heading east, right? What do? You course correct. You begin to adjust at that point in time. It's like the plane that flies regularly. There is wind blowing it like this. There is gravity pulling it, all right? There are different things affecting the plane at that point, but the pilot always is adjusting the plane, adjusting it in the right direction that is expected to be in order to ensure we remember on that particular area. And that's what we expect you to do as the leader of this strategy session, all right? Periodically during the review session, you check for, we'll call it drifts, strategy drifts. To what extent are we moving away from the original strategy? And then help us to address it at that point. Okay, so any feedback or question, feel free to share it and we'll be able to take it at this point in time. So I haven't discussed our strategic intents and how to plan the strategy. Let's now look at strategy execution. Let's now look at execution. Okay, so before we go into execution, Kemka?
Okay, I appreciate the fact that you just brought now with regard to strategy, developing strategy and the new performance management system at the same time, because that's kind of happens to be the situation we're in. So while people are trying to understand the new strategy, a lot of people are also trying to understand the new performance management system, and I quite agree with you. It's bringing a lot of distraction to the system here, and it's noted. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So what you do usually is to put more energy in one particular area and try to bring that area to an acceptable level before you go back to that. Since you already started, so you can't shut down one, so to speak. You midwife the two of them, but there will be more attention to one. And guess what? The attention will be in the one that executive management is paying attention to. That's where you put all the energy into to drive it up to a level where management is comfortable. Then you gradually begin to pay attention to the other ones. Yes, Taiwo.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for what you have said so far. You made mention of balanced scorecard. Well, is there any way you can put more light to what are the things to be in a balanced scorecard? How do we develop a very effective balanced scorecard? Then how do we use it to get what we want at the end of it?
Okay, Taiwo, I can't hear you clearly. Will that be my own network?
Okay, so can you hear me now, sir?
Clara, it's Clara.
Can you hear? It's clearer now. Okay, so I was just saying that you mentioned the balance scorecard at some point. Now I was asking, how do we, at what point do we use balance scorecard? What exactly are the features that can cause effectiveness for our balance scorecard? And when do we use balance scorecard? All of those questions. I just need clarity in all of them.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll try not to localize the conversation only on balance scorecard. In terms of when do we use a balance scorecard, it's also the same question. When do we use your OKR system? When do you use your KPI system, as the case is? Right from the very beginning, when you begin to do your alignment of businesses, there will be some clear definitions here when you're defining your strategy development about what you expect various business units to do. So those expectations of those units, you note them down. Those are things you are going to track that particular business unit. If you have said, okay, finance is going to do this, HR is going to do this, IT is going to do this, it goes into the respective scorecards of those particular departments or the OKRs of those particular departments. In this third stage, when you're creating action plans, this is where you see a list of individuals, departments, and units that are responsible for various areas. This is where you're going to use your performance system in order to track those particular things. Now, I'm talking about the balance scorecard. The balance scorecard is a unique performance management tool. In fact, it is more of a strategy implementation tool than just a performance management tool. It is best used from an organizational point of view, where you are able to look at the financials of the business, you're able to look at the customer metrics of that particular business and the drivers of those metrics. You're able to look at the operations in the business, the processes within the business, and then the infrastructure in place to guide the business to achieve results. That infrastructure includes people. It also includes technology. For the financials of the business, you'll be looking at maybe the business is tracking revenue as part of your strategy. You're tracking revenue. You're tracking cost management. You're tracking profitability, right? You're tracking liquidity. So those are the things you'll find in the financials of your scorecard. If you're also tracking your customer metrics, customer satisfaction, churn rate, loyalty, wallet share, the extent of business you're doing with the customer and things like that. So you track those. Note that if those things you track in customer, like customer is satisfied, he's loyal, he's buying a lot from you, he comes back regularly, all right? Those things will drive the financials. It will drive revenue, it will drive sales. And so it will drive the financials at that point. Your financials must not disconnect from your customer. The two of them must have a locked hand, a handshake at that point, because the customer metrics drives the financial metrics. Then you come down to your operations and your process level. You begin to ask, what are the things that will make the customer buy? What are the things that will make the customer remain loyal to us? What are the things that will make the customer satisfied with us? You look at your turnaround time, you look at your value delivery systems, you look at the quality of service and product that you're rendering, and begin to track those particular things. If quality is high, turnaround time is good, and then you're able to deliver according to the promise of you give to the customer, most probably the customer will be more satisfied and would like to do business with you at that point in time. Again, those particular processes drive the customer, so there must be no disconnect. They will drive the customer process at that point in time. Sometimes those particular processes may jump the customer and go straight to finance. An example, cost management or cost cutting, that may not be directly involved with the customer, but it's about the way we do business. All right. So you're able to cut costs and manage costs very well. So straight, it will drive finance at that point. Then the last one is your people and technology. In terms of people, do you have sufficient number of staff, head count? If you're supposed to have 100, do you have only 50? Do you have only 70? So you're short-staffed. All right. How about the competency level and the capability of your team members? Are they able to do that job? Are there gaps? Do they need training for them to be able to build themselves up at that point in time? How about your management style? All right. Are team members empowered? Do they have the capacity, or do they have the approval and permission to take decisions? Can they take initiative without being punished at that point in time? These are the things we look at around the people side of the business. And of course, the engagement. Do people feel excited that they want to do more than they are currently doing within the business? You notice that if this is done very well, coupled with IT, maybe the latest technology, functional technology, let me not just latest, functional technology at that point in time. A functional technology with team members operating those technology, your processes will work well, customers will be happy, and financials will happen. So that's a quick summary of your balance scorecard and how to use it in this particular strategy. So if you put a balance scorecard in place, then during your review sessions, it is those KPIs on the strategy that you're going to be looking at. You'll be looking at those particular measures and metrics on that particular balance scorecard, because it's supposed to help you to drive the strategy at that point in time. But please be careful. Don't overload your scorecard with plenty metrics. Just focus on the ones that are direct drivers of the strategy, so we can have clarity and focus on delivering results as much as possible. Thank you. Is there a question? Can we get a recording? Definitely, Tosin. The session is being recorded. Okay, so execution. Remember earlier we spoke about historical analysis, right? Before you start executing anything, look at history. What are our highs? What are some of the things we've done very well? What are our low? What are some of the things we're not doing very well? That will guide you as you plan towards your execution at that point in time in your line of business. With respect to external analysis, you may do some environmental analysis, right? Internal analysis, external analysis. We mentioned the PETALks, all right? For each area of analysis, and you're analyzing, for example, if you're in a line of business that does a lot of import or export, then you must be hit by legal issues. You'll be hit by regulatory issues. You also be hit by economic issues. For example, if you are importing, FX will be a serious problem for you. So you need to plan for that at that point in time. If you are exporting, then there are constant regulations about what can be exported at any point in time. So you must ensure that you're in constant compliance with government. So those are issues of looking at external environment, as the case is. Then some of your external analysis may be positive to you. It will be in your own favor. So you list each of those analyses that are in your favor, and then list the ones that are outside your favor. These analyses are best done with the team during the strategy session. Again, just like I recommended, you can break them into small groups. And if you're very few, just throw up the slide up. And as people are saying, you're typing it to the slide, so I can capture those particular things. When it comes to internal analysis, the best thing to do is to do a SWOT analysis. For your SWOT analysis, you're looking at your strengths, your weakness, your opportunities, and your threats. What are strengths? something that we have already. Our competitors do not have it, and they can't easily get it without them coming to steal it from us. That's a strength. An example, Coca-Cola special formula, your critical staff that is very good in what they are doing, all right? And some measure of technology, bespoke technology that was developed for you alone. Those are examples of some strengths that you can have. Leadership, all right? Culture, those are some strengths. Then weaknesses, some of the things that you're supposed to be good at doing, but you're not good at doing it. Rather, your competitors are better in doing those particular things, all right? And it is not easy for you to develop those things. That's a weakness. Opportunities. In general, what out there, external to the organization, that you are not currently doing, that if you concentrate on it, will improve your results, will help you to do more and achieve more at that point in time. Those are opportunities. New markets, new employees that you may hire, new skill areas from outside, partnerships that you can go into. Threats, something potentially with the capacity to shut down your business, slow down your operations, or affect your results at the end of the day. Things that you need to get rid of or find a solution quickly to. If not so, you'll be in serious trouble at that point in time. If you remember the days of pandemic, that's an example of a threat. NSAS is an example of a threat. If you're in the education sector, the entire 8 months or 9 months of ASU strike is an example of a threat to you at that point in time. So anything externally that threatens your ability to continue working and running your business is a threat. Even a new competitor that has opened up beside you, that is doing exactly what you're doing and is busy stealing your customers one by one, is also a threat for you. So you need to bring your team members together and ask them questions. Here are some questions you can ask them. For strength, after you break them into teams and ask them to go and deliberate, give them these questions. Ask them, what do we do well now? Let them write it down. What are we good at doing? What about our business do we feel proud of? What are we proud of in this line of business? There was an organization we did a strategy for in January. And when we were asking them about what are they proud about, they said the fact that they are providing a service that government is supposed to provide for the masses, for the populace, makes them feel good that they are touching lives at that point in time. That's an example of a strength, all right? Then what traits or abilities does your organization have that will help you to achieve the future success that you're pursuing? Execution, discipline, connections, network, branch locations. Those are examples of some capabilities or traits that you may have. Then what do our customers and staff say about us? Oh, fantastic people to work with, great brand, wonderful service, beautiful solutions and products. If those are the words that your customers and staff use to describe you, then it's a strength. All right? On the other hand, ask your team members also, let them document areas of weaknesses. What aspects of the business do we need to work on? What makes our company vulnerable? What traits or abilities do we not have or are we weak in? What is currently frustrating us in doing business? Maybe management is very slow in taking decisions or approving things. Or disappointments, we're always falling the hand of customers. We never meet expectations of customers, as the case may be. All right, customer experience is very poor. Those are examples of weaknesses. Allow your team members to generate these particular weaknesses. Opportunities. What are the new trends? What new events, locally, nationally, globally, internationally, that if we grab, we shall excel and advance in that particular area? What changes in technology can we take advantage of? For example, maybe there is a new software or an upgrade of current softwares, but you're still using the old software. So if you upgrade, you're able to do more at that point in time. What government policies are in effect to your favor? Maybe government is pushing a particular agenda. Maybe you're in the agricultural line and government is pushing agriculture. That is a nascent thing now, that they have funding for agriculture. That's an example of opportunity for you to do more in that particular space. then what cultural or social issues that are changing around you that could be an advantage you can take and be able to deliver more at that point? One of the clothing outfits in Nigeria during the pandemic period, what did they do? Instead of sewing clothes that people were wearing, they started sewing masks. That's an example of opportunity. And they started sewing masks, and they made hundreds of millions of naira from deploying masks across the entire country at that point in time. So that's an example of finding a social change that you can see opportunity inside and then drive that opportunity to deliver results and achieve better results also. Threats, a few questions to ask on threats. What obstacles are we facing outside? Economic obstacles. Remember, we've spoken about inflation. We've spoken about exchange rates. All right. We've spoken about lack of funding, as the case is. What are the trends? What are regulations? Labor market. What are the conditions outside that is affecting us and slowing our business down? What market trends is affecting us? Maybe demand is dropping. Yeah. Your line of business, the demand for that product is dropping at that point in time. It can affect you. I remember during the pandemic, there was a drop in one line of our business, which is training. Major organizations, a lot of organizations wound down, almost shut down on training, as the case is. Imagine if an organization is, all they do is training. You see that threat will have shut down that business 100%. All right? Then are there changing technologies that you see around you that if you don't do anything about it, you can actually affect your business at that point and you'll not be able to do anything or achieve more at that point in time? So these are some things you need to put in place. You need to run during your strategy session. At the end of running this SWOT, also do a barriers analysis. Ask your team member, what are the barriers that we see that will affect us to deliver this result? From corporate, from MD's office, from ED's office, from EXCO meetings and things like that. What are some of the barriers that will affect our executing this strategy? Then at the business level, at the functional level, if your department is sales, what are the things at the sales level? Sales manager, sales operations, sales software, sales compensation that is going to affect us to be able to deliver on this particular result. And then at the team level and at individual level, do we have teaming problem? Are there conflicts? All right, people are having issues working together at those particular levels. Do we have resource issues? All right, do we have team members who are not pulling their weight? Ask for barriers and do not limit yourself. The more you plan for these barriers, the more guaranteed that your strategy will be executed at the end of the day. All right. If you identify some areas that need to be fixed during your SWOT analysis and during your barrier analysis, then you need to do an action plan in place. What action item? We're going to run a team building program. We're going to put in place a special approval process. We're going to put in place a special budget for the team. So each of those things are action items. Then who is responsible for it? Team building, line manager and HR. Approval process, executive management and head of the department. Each of those items, you list out those who are responsible for it. Completion date. When do we expect the team building to be done? In 2 months' time, in 1 month time. When do we want the new approval process to be signed off on? In 60 days' time, as the case is. What is the expected outcome? Team building. The team will work together as one, and there will be less barriers and less issues, and they'll produce more results at that point. So those are examples of things to look out for in your implementation to ensure that you execute your strategy very, very well, and you do not have too much issues around the strategy implementation. Okay, feel free to ask questions as we look at the third part of our conversation, the fourth part of our conversation, which says, what are the successful steps, the steps you should take to ensure that that retreat you organize, that strategy outing you organize is successful at that point, that we're able to achieve the results as we expect it to be at that point in time. So we're asking, what do we do to ensure that these things are put in place? Well, one you must prepare well. We cannot overemphasize the need for you to prepare and prepare very, very well for your strategy retreats. The more you prepare, the more possible it is that you're going to be able to deliver the kind of results that you expect during your strategy. So before the retreat, you need to put some things in place, right? One of the things you need to consider before the retreat is to do some homework. Make sure that your team members know exactly what is expected of them. If anybody has any presentation to make during that session, assign it to the individual ahead of time, all right? So that everybody is clear on expectations and his own part in that particular case. All those attending should review the plan, send the agenda ahead of time. So everybody reviews and everybody knows his part and they are prepared so much. So when we come during that session, sometimes you go to retreats and strategy sessions. While the retreat is going on, all of us are brainstorming. Some people are busy preparing the presentation. They should have prepared before coming to that session. So we lose their contribution during that particular session. I normally say that, in fact, they should go to the hotel room. Let them go to the hotel room and finish their presentation and come and meet us. That their presence sometimes is a distraction to the team, as the case may be at that point in time. Yes, clearly you're getting the slides and also the recording. Okay. So after looking at your preparation and review, sometimes the preparations involves you sending some data, financial analysis, operations analysis, staffing analysis of what has happened over time to your team members so that they can work on it and get ready to come to that particular session. So are you on target to implement your action plan so that you can achieve as much as possible? It is often helpful to have a discussion before the session so you can achieve more results at that point. Usually there's what we call pre-strategy session. Before we go for that retreat, we'll do a 1 or 2 hour session in the office. You can do it virtually. Discuss the agenda, discuss the conversations, discuss expectations and all those things. So everybody is clear of what is expected of them. And then we can mention team members. Joel will be presenting on this person will be presenting on this. So everybody ahead of time have prepared in addition to that particular thing. One thing we notice is that when they are preparing for strategy retreat, they don't give enough time. We usually say you need minimum of 4 to 6 weeks to plan for a strategy retreat. Some people just say, okay, we'll do it. And then one day, MD just approves. And directly that day, we'll start fire service. We'll say, okay, check if that hotel is available. Check if this place is available. We'll start running around to find which venue we're going to use. And within the same week, we'll tell the consultant, we'll tell everybody to get ready. And then we'll all show up at that point. All of us are panting. You see that at the end of the day, that particular strategy session, although it will look successful, because everybody will have gone the extra mile to ensure that it will be successful, but it will have had more success if it had enough time for planning, as the case is. The second one is for you to set your agenda. What is the agenda of what will be covered during that particular strategy session? What will be the focus of the session? So you must prepare an agenda and allow for discussions of issues in that particular agenda, either before the retreat or during the retreat. You must have inside that agenda a situation or a room for people to discuss the issues they have faced during the last year of strategy. And then make time for breakout sessions so more detailed conversations can happen in various areas. Create ample time for discussions. Don't, because sometimes when the strategy session is going on, people are talking and talking. Somebody says, look, we are wasting time. There's no time. Let's move to the next session. Interestingly, those issues are the things that will prevent us from executing the new strategy. So we need to pay attention to those issues. Hear the people out. Understand why it is an issue for them and what we can do in terms of approval support to address those particular issues for them at that point. Here is a suggested agenda. Very simple agenda. I've always noticed that this is a framework I use. Then based on this, you can then expand it or contract it based on what kind of strategy that you're running. There is a strategy introduction that tells us why we're here. If it is a departmental strategy session, the head of the department will speak and tell us why we're there. The head of the strategy will discuss what the agenda is. Within that particular area also, we can invite one executive, maybe our line ED, or the MD to also come and discuss and wish us well in that deliberation, as the case is. But if it is a corporate strategy, this is where the MD shares, welcomes the team and tells the team that this matters to him, that they are here to help him, that this strategy session is designed to create a corporate scorecard that he, the MD, will use to run the organization next year. So this is where the MD pleads and asks everybody to put all hands on deck in order to support us to ensure that the strategy session works very well. It's also the time when the consultant who is running that process will intimate us with the various parts of the retreat and all the other issues, logistic issues that we should be aware of to follow through at that point in time. 2 is situation analysis. Remember, I spoke about all the analysis. You do the external analysis, internal analysis. You do where are we now in the organization? What are we currently doing? What have we achieved so far? What is the current situation of things within the organization and also the market where we are in? All right. This is the opportunity when this happens during this phase 2. In phase 3 is when we begin to make choices about the strategic direction that we're going to have. All right. This is where you now begin to say, okay, let's become this. Let's pursue this. This year, let's achieve 2 billion. This year, let's grow by 10%. It happens in this particular point. And this is where everybody locks head and there's an agreement and a vote that this is what we want to achieve. After this is said, and we agree on the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 strategic themes that we are pursuing, that we must achieve that particular year. In one of the strategies retreats we had, the MD says that, look, I am going to set 1 strategic team. Then the rest team members can set 2. And then he said his own team is that we must produce a PBT of 1.5 billion. He has said his own 1.5 billion PBT. All right. So whatever discussion we have must be channeled towards growing PBT to that point in time. Then the other team members now came and said, okay, well, branch expansion, market penetrations. They mentioned the other things that they wanted at that point. Number 4 is when you now take each of the teams, each of the strategy teams that has been said in number 3, and break it down into action plans. All right. And so, okay, market penetration. So we're going to do a lot of jingles, market storming. You understand? You begin to break down into tactical plans on what we're going to do to achieve things in that area. Number 5, what are you now break that entire plan that has been put in place to the various departments that are responsible for it. All right, so marketing plan, business plan, operations plan, HR's plans, you begin to share it to the various business units that are responsible for it. And also the budget constraints or the budget allocations to them in order to be able to help you to achieve that results in that area. Usually, this is where the retreat will most probably come to an end. And at the end of this particular session, we'll take lessons learned. We'll now discuss what did we learn, what are the issues, and then our takeaways at the end of it. While you do this, you must create time for team bonding, for team building, right? So somewhere in between this, especially the second day, you find time to create some team bonding activities. Let your team members bond. If you can't handle it internally, get an external consultant. Let them run a team building session for your team members for between 2 hours to 4 hours or more, depending on the kind of time you have for your entire process. Sometimes even the retreat itself, the focus of the retreat is team building and not just strategy, as the case is at that point in time. At the end of this particular strategy meeting, you can then take this entire agenda and the outcome, the way we have broken it down to various departments, to various units, and then begin to have departmental strategy sessions or unit strategy sessions or planning sessions, as the case may be, so that they can help you to deliver the strategy at that level also. Number 3, logistics. After you're clear on the agenda, the next thing is logistics. Will this session hold outside the office? Most times it holds outside the office. Is the place close to the office environment? If it's close to the office environment, most probably you will not provide accommodation, no transportation. People will find their way to that particular session. But if they are going to have an away day, it's going to be somewhere away from the office. most probably you plan transport for everybody. And you also plan the accommodation of everybody at that point in time. It is necessary to ensure that you invite only the necessary people, people who have positions that can provide insight to the team, to the strategy as the case is. It may not be necessary to invite every manager. It is not every manager that you may invite, depending on the size of the organization at that point in time. Then you should learn to celebrate. Have a window, a section of the strategy retreat as a point to celebrate the successes of last year. So let's recognize people who have done very well in the last year, give them awards, recognize them especially, and things like that. If possible, have a dinner, a closeout dinner, so to speak, where everybody sits down and have a fine time to celebrate what has happened so far as the ginger for the next period at that point in time. It's also good to summarize the retreat event into a report that you can share to every team member who can then benefit from it. All right. Then consider who will moderate all the discussions. The person who is organizing the strategy retreat may not be the best person to moderate because he'll be too busy with the logistics arrangements and the run around of that particular retreat that he will not pay attention to the real coordination activity. This is why sometimes when you're planning a strategy, you must have a committee of at least 3 persons who are involved in getting it right. If also, if it is only one person, you see that the person will be stretched thin. He's the one telling next on the agenda, okay, we progress to this particular place. He's talking to the people in the kitchen. Where are we not ready for lunch? He's talking to people in accommodation. It's just a mess. Just make sure that you have critical individuals assigned various tasks that are not overlapping so that they can do their work very, very well. In fact, one person should manage logistics, transportation, and accommodation. Let him sort it out. Another person perhaps should manage the gifts, the souvenir, the food, and all those particular things. Another person should manage the activities within the retreat. Another person should supervise the entire retreat, depending on the size of the organization and the number of people who are there. Okay? At best, you can hire a consultant to help you to do all those particular things and ensure that you are able to achieve results at that point. So to get it well, allocate adequate resources to ensure that you do things well. Assign team members responsibilities, okay? Who will be responsible for implementing the strategy at various areas. And then schedule periodic review meetings to see how prepared we are towards that particular area, and then to ensure that we are moving towards success and then achieving results. Then watch your key performance indicators. Depending on the kind of performance management system that you're using. Finally, be agile. You cannot set a strategy and say the strategy is cast in stone. It cannot be cast in stone because things evolve and change. We live in a VUCA environment today. Change happens regularly. So some of those things that you discuss, the fundamentals on which you built the strategy on, might have changed. Maybe initially you projected that the exchange rate dollar, like in 2015, one of the organizations projected that dollar will be between 160 and 190. That particular year, 2015, dollar went up to 500. It was crazy. They almost shut down business because they could not afford to import their raw materials anymore. So always be ready to adjust your strategy as the markets and the external environment continues to change. It's even possible that you've said, our critical strategy is that we're going to go in this particular direction. And your team, the driver of that direction you mentioned, now sends in his letter that he's jackparing to Canada or something like that. Instantly, the entire strategy is shut down. So it's important for you to always reevaluate, check for key man risk, check for risky areas and positions where you put yourself in a position where you can lose at that point in time. Manage risk successfully, and then you can achieve great results. So any questions, feel free to ask. We'll be able to take that particular question. Okay, so a good question. Thank you very much, Wisdom. So his question is, can action plan or strategizing involve laying off staff, despite that they may have contributed during a retreat. That is being emotional. All right. Your strategy may require you to downsize, right? Or to right size, as the case may be. So part of your strategy may be a consolidation strategy. It's not an expansion strategy. You are not designing to grow. You are designing to consolidate, to save, to protect the franchise, as the case may be. Maybe the organization has zenithted and is beginning to decline at that point in time. So it's okay for that strategy to involve you shedding assets that you may not require again at that point in time. And some of those assets may be staff. Unfortunately, in the list of staff that you may say that you need them to lead, maybe some of the people who attended that strategy session. There's nothing wrong with it. Just ensure you follow the labor law, compensate them accordingly, and then work with hand in hand with them to have a good transition as they move on to other careers in their life. All right, so it's okay. That's very fine. Okay, so there's a what I've shared with you is the general way of doing strategy and planning strategy. But there is a special, what we call a question-based approach for strategy development. Once you finish doing the general way, I will encourage you into the future to begin to practice this. All right, this is called playing to win methodology. All right, your strategy at this point is not just about putting strategy, because everybody says strategy. Your main idea is because you want to win, you want to succeed. That's why you're doing this. This is actually a question-based strategy, and it's based on 5 cascades of questions. The very first one starts with your aspiration. It has nothing to do with your past. In playing to win in a question-based strategy, we're not bothered first about your past. That's okay. Where are we now? What have we become so far? We're not interested. We are much more interested in what can we be? What could the future be for us at this point in time? All right. So the first question I ask is, what is our winning aspiration? What do we want to achieve at that point in time in the organization? So where does your strategy retreat come into in this particular area? It will help to guide you at this point in time. Now, when you ask the question on, when you ask the question about your winning strategy, your winning aspirations, where do you see yourself? What do you want to achieve at that point in time? There are some conversations that you need to have to check on to ensure that you're doing very well in that area. For example, what is the purpose of the enterprise? Your winning aspiration, right? What's our guiding aspiration? Why are we here? So that must be very clear upfront. Forget where we are. Let's focus on where we wanted to be from day one when they set up that particular franchise. Then before you now ask the second question, the second question is now about where you intend to play, the market where you're going to play, okay? The right playing field. Where do you want to play in? Where will you compete, okay? In terms of geography, will you compete in Lagos? Will you compete in Abuja, in Port Harcourt? Or will you compete in Nigeria? Will you compete in West Africa? Are you going to be a global organization? So that's what to consider at that point in time, right? What products will you bring in the market? What kind of solutions are you going to bring in the market? What categories? What consumer levels? That is a question of where you will play, all right? Which areas you're going to look at. Are you going to look at vertical integration, or are you going to look at horizontal integration when you're playing in the market? So your focus is on winning. You're asking these questions because you want to find out where the opportunities are for you. It's not about where we are in this particular case. Question number 3, your operations. How would you operate? How would you win? What are the ways you're going to uniquely provide value and deliver value to your customers and to the community at that point there? What is the extra you're bringing to the market? Turnaround time, service excellence, high quality. What exactly? How will you win in the market? So when competitors are saying, our product is the highest product, you tell them not a problem. Our own fast turnaround time, we deliver on time. So you focus on your promise. Have you seen Jumia and what's their name? And Spa quarreling? No, their operations are completely different. Jumia promises you instant delivery. They promise you convenience. That's the focus of where they are winning. While SPA, on the other hand, is seeing is believing. Come to the shopping center, see it, enjoy it, test it before you carry it and go at that point in time. So their focus is completely different at that point, even though they are selling the same physical product, as the case may be. Then the next question is capabilities or competencies. What do we have to be good at, right? In terms of competence, skill, knowledge, and ability. So you identify those particular competencies and abilities that we should be good at that point in time. Then the last one is management systems. What management system do we need in order to succeed? Systems, structures, measures that will support the things we've discussed so far. Those are the things that we'll put in place. The interesting thing about this kind of strategy approach is that when you finish this, you notice that some departments are no longer necessary. Some team members are no longer necessary. Some teams are no longer required. Some tools, some resources are no longer required. What do? You shed weight immediately and then go and acquire the ones that you need in order to achieve the results that you want. This particular strategy method is usually very bold. And for people who are focused in a high-level market-driven strategy, because their focus is on winning. It's not about, I've been here for 10 years, I've been here for 15 years. It's not about longevity. It's not about loyalty. It's about the future. And then they focus on that particular future and drive it. It's usually not a very friendly approach, but all the same, it delivers the results that we expect it to deliver. And when we expect it to deliver those particular results at that point in time. So that's what we mean here. Now, here, remember to start when you're doing your strategy session. For you to be successful, start with the end in mind. Always define what success will look like. If we finish this strategy session, if we succeed, what will it look like? Then appoint a competent facilitator to run your strategy session. If you can't do it internally, find an external person. Instead of saving costs, right? Make sure you deliver value and deliver results at that point. Then 3, prepare your retreat agenda. We've spoken about retreat agenda. Make sure you have a good agenda at that point in time. During the retreat, make sure you do a proper in-depth analysis. The more in-depth the analysis you make, the better the quality of the strategy session at the end of the day. Also, build consensus throughout the process. Build consensus. Make sure that everybody is in agreement. It is not fair that we go for a strategy session and we agree on something, and then when we come back, some people begin to do differently. When you actually say, well, I did not agree in that session, but you were in that particular session, make sure that we have an agreement, an alignment, and everybody agrees at that point in time before we leave that particular strategy session. Then number 6, plan implementation and execution. Make sure that it is clear when we come back what step 1 is, step 2, step 3, down to the last step that delivers that strategy. Not when we come back from the strategy session, we'll now be looking for, okay, what did we agree in the strategy? What is the next action point? When do we start meeting? All those things should have been sorted out during the strategy sessions. And this helps if you have assigned roles and responsibilities to various team members. Who is in charge of what? It will have worked very well. Then what resources do they need? I cannot say I'm expanding market and I cannot provide marketing resources. And then put in place your communication plan. How do you communicate the strategy to all team members? Both those who went to the strategy as a reminder and those who did not go, so that they are aware of that particular strategy session that we've done at that point in time. Then finally, your monitoring. How do you monitor to ensure that you're able to deliver final value and then achieve the best value at that point in time? So these are some things you should consider as you plan out your strategy sessions, and then you achieve great results. Let me take one more slide in this particular area before I leave this area. Here are some things you must do at the end of the strategy session. When the session is over, things you must do when you come back from that particular strategy session. 1, send an email to everybody that participated, thanking them for participating in that particular session. Please do it immediately. Do it immediately. Send an email to those who have participated in the strategy session, thanking them for their contribution. 2, share the highlights of the entire plan with the entire organization. Seek management's approval. Seek the head of your departmental head or the MD's approval to share the summary of the strategy, the highlights of the strategy to the entire organization at that point in time. And this is to shock you also. Begin plan of the next year's strategy. Immediately you come back from this strategy. Why? Open up a book, and as you're learning and hearing things, the lessons from the previous strategy, begin to write it. Now, next strategy, we shall start 2 months earlier. Next strategy, we shall involve this person and that person. Instantly, you're creating the blueprint for the next strategy at that point in time. And this must happen within 1 week of your return from this strategy. If you use an external facilitator, right, at the end of that strategy session, invite the facilitator for a meeting, so you can debrief and go through the agreements, the discussions again. So there's clarity. You have full clarity of what you're supposed to do in order to actualize your strategy. And then debrief your team members, the committee that helped you to facilitate that particular session in order to achieve as much results as possible. All right? Then review your plans. Review your plans. Within 2 days to 7 days of coming back, all the action plans that we said we're supposed to execute, please review them. After you've rested, immediately review the action plan, so none falls into the cracks and will lose attention at that point. When should you recommit to your plans? Within 2 weeks of your return. So you should recommit to that particular plan, right? In case if there are certain parts of the plan that some people say we have to go back to the office and check. I don't have all the details. Let me get back to the office. Maximum 2 weeks. Anybody that needs to check anything should have finished checking in 2 weeks, so I can wrap up the plans at that point in time. Again, number 8 is similar to number 2. If there are improvements and adjustments, share those particular things with the rest of the organization, and then begin to implement your plan daily. Let the execution be flawless and every day. Then on a monthly basis and on a quarterly basis, have review sessions. Sit down to review what has gone on and what has gone at that point in time on your strategy. This will help you to achieve great results on that particular strategy. Okay, so before we move to the last parts of our discussion, whether you should do the strategy yourself, you should get a consultant, or you should get someone to do it. Which one is best for you? There's a question that says, how do I go about doing strategic retreats as a consultant, starting from marketing, pricing, etc.? Okay, this is out of scope. We didn't, it's not part of our plans in this session, maybe another session in the future. This session is focused on organizing a brief you have already, all right? For the issue of marketing and pricing, we'll take it out offline, outside this discussion. Thank you very much. Okay, so what are the factors that affect your business strategy? All right, there are issues of time. There is no time to do what you need to do. The issues of complexity is too complex. The issue of money, you don't have the money, you cannot afford it. There's also issue of willingness to learn. Look, I don't want to learn strategic planning. Let the experts do it. And there's also the importance of strategic planning to the operations of the business. These are the things, these 5 elements are the things that will determine what kind of strategy approach you're going to take in order to pursue your strategy at that point in time. So the first one, the first model you're going to take is what we call do-it-yourself. In the do-it-yourself model, you begin to design the strategy yourself, all right? You put things in place, all right, in terms of getting things done, all right? It is usually the most cost-effective way of strategic planning because you don't pay any consultants. And the idea behind it is that you want full control of what is happening during that particular session, all right? If you're looking to create a strategy, you may begin to look at it in that particular direction. Then you use the DIY methods, usually when you have time and you don't have money. You have time, you can do it yourself, and you don't have money to pay another person. So you use the DIY method. But it requires a lot of time. Because since it is not what you do on a daily basis, it will stretch you in being able to plan it. Unlike a consultant that every month, they are in one strategy session after another. So it's like second nature to them at that point in time. However, the good thing about the DIY method is that it helps you to customize your strategy and to be able to match it to your business realities at that point in time. You can, if you are a quick learner, it is easy for you to run with it and then drive process at that point. And then you can save your organization some money. So that's your DIY, as the case is. Then there's the DFY. The DFY is done for you, right? Where you outsource the strategic planning process to another person or another organization to run it for you at that point in time. This particular one involves the exchange of service for money. So you pay a consultant to come and do this service for you, all right? Consequently, it frees you up so you can use your time for other things. You can concentrate on other business areas. So while the strategy session is going on, you can be playing on your phone, you can be discussing with other people, you can be following up on business issues at that point in time, right? Immediately after the strategy session, you don't have to be preparing the report. The consultant will go and prepare the report and bring it. Before the strategy session, you don't have to generate data of what will be discussed and all those things, arrange agenda. You pay the service, you pay for that particular service at that point. And again, online, you can find some good experts to outsource to. We do this a lot, and we've done quite a lot in terms of strategy for various organizations. It is usually the most effective. The DFY is the most effective business strategy planning model because you get value for money at that point in time. Another one is what we refer to as done with you, which is a consulting model. This one involves you working hand in hand with the consultants. For the consultant will sit with you, do the plans, draw the plans, two of you will work together. It costs you money, it costs you time. But the beauty of it is that after this particular session, you understand in and out of the entire strategy process. And if possible, you might be able to replicate it again in the future. All right. So any business can choose any of these particular strategies as a model that they are going to use. Okay. And as you progress through it, you can then determine which one saves you money, saves you time, which one gives you the greatest value as an organization. Then you can achieve results at that point. Whichever one you choose, remember that your strategy session is focused on two things. Is it like putting a strategy in place, or it is designed to adjust the culture of your organization? If you're putting a new strategy in place, then you're asking these particular 4 questions. Where are we now? Right? Where do we want to go to? Why do we want to go to that particular place? And how do we get to that particular place? So you look at yourself, you look at your organization, you look at the network, and you look at the business world where you are in at that point. If, on the other hand, your strategy session is focused on culture, you want to improve the culture of the organization, again, you will ask the question, where are we today? Who do we want to become tomorrow? What kind of behavior and culture do we want tomorrow? Why do we want that behavior tomorrow? And how do we get there at that point in time? Again, it will help you to achieve results. Now, at the end of your strategic planning, you will have identified some critical goals. Remember, I will say maximum of 4, 3 to 5 goals. It should not be more than those particular goals that you're pursuing at that point. Some organizations pursue only 1 goal. Okay, so once you've articulated that particular goal, you use this particular template. We'll call this template the success spectrum. At the end of every strategy session, before we wrap up and walk away, we gather the team again and ask them, what does failure look like for these strategic goals that we've mentioned? What is it that if we see it, will become a failure for us? So success means avoiding 100% of these items, and then they will brainstorm and identify things that we must avoid. These are strategy killers, as the case may be. 100%, we must avoid it. 2, we'll ask the question, success means achieving 100% of these. Then what are the things that are not negotiable? We must achieve 100% of it. If we don't achieve 100% of it, this strategy has failed. And then we will list out those items, the things that we must achieve 100% of at that point in time. Then we'll now look at our targets. Our target now means success means achieving at least 40 or 60% of this. That means this is a stretch goal, the part where we've stretched ourselves very well. We identify things that we must achieve in this particular area. And then if possible, what epic results can we achieve that once we get that particular epic result, we have blown, we have achieved great result at that point. So also identify it and agree on how to succeed in that particular area. So be clear about the goals and then be clear about the time space. At what timeline must we achieve all these particular things? Another tool that we use for strategic planning is what we call the strategy culture bicycle. All right. When you're developing your effective strategy and culture, it is fundamental to ask yourself those questions, those 4 questions that we ask. And we usually refer to it as a culture and strategy bicycle because one leg is strategy, another leg is culture. If you don't pay attention to culture, culture will erode and destroy your strategy. And if your strategy does not take into consideration the culture that it needs to deliver results, you're going to have problems at that point. So what is the bicycle in this case? All right. The bicycle in this case is, this is the first wheel and this is the second wheel of that particular bicycle. For this back wheel of the bicycle, we're looking at our strategy, awareness. Where are we now? We must be aware where we are. So this question must be crystal clear when we get the answers. Where do we need to go or where do we want to go? That's aspiration. The mountaintop where we want to go and why we must achieve that mountaintop at that point in time. Then action. How do we get there? What are the action points? Step 1, step 2, step 3 that will drive the results in that area. The same way we have this back wheel, we also have the front wheel, which is the culture at that point in time for us to be able to deliver the results that we expect. Okay, so there's a question that we should go back and explain EPIC. Failure, avoid it. Minimum, must achieve 100%. Targets, at least 40% and above. It shows we're doing well. EPIC is one thing that once we achieve it, we have blown. It's mind-blowing at that point in time. An example is somebody that wrote one particular organization that they are into book publishing. And then they publish a book, one particular small organization. They publish a book and then they go and sell it. Sometimes they sell 50,000 copies. Sometimes they sell 100,000 copies of the book, right? So for them, target will be sell 100,000 copies. And then perhaps when they sell 40, 50, 60,000 copies, they are fine by it, as the case is. So that's their target. EPIC, government now signs up with them and tell you that, look, that book you wrote on cultism in schools, going forward, every student that goes to school must get a copy of the book. And then they mandate all universities across Nigeria that they must get a copy of that. That's called EPIC. It is not part of your plan, but that particular achievement has blown the scale completely. Imagine the number of millions of students that sign up and go to school every year. You move from selling 10,000, 40,000 copies to 1 million copies at that point in time. That's what we mean by EPIC. So every business has its own EPIC, as the case may be at that point in time. All right? So if you're able to brainstorm and identify what an EPIC would be for you, that will help you to put your eyes on that particular area so you can achieve that goal as much as possible. Okay, so beautiful. Thank you very much. Strategic planning or team building is doable if you follow the steps of what we have said so far. But if you feel overwhelmed and you notice that some of these things you may not be able to implement it very well, we are here to help. Please make contact us at the number indicated. We'll be able to guide you further and assist you. Like I said, this is P4P Institute. We're a consulting firm based here in Lagos. We have operations in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, in Ghana, in Enugu, and also in Ibadan. Those are areas where we have done some work. We've been around for the past 11 years, focused on 3 major areas in driving business. We are a management and business transformation consultants. It is our vision of the future that one day human capital analytics will become an integral part of business success. And we offer comprehensive resources for organizations, for individuals, and also for teams in order to grow their results. In particular, we have business growth solutions, performance consulting, business growth, corporate performance management, strategic planning, strategic execution, executive coaching and development, business process development, and business intelligence and data analytics. We are very well known in this particular area. So that's a solution we'll bring to the table. We are also known for our organizational development. We provide solutions that enhance your organization's agility and responsiveness to change today. OD, organizational design, culture and change management, sustainability management, team building, innovation management. We do very well in this area. And then finally, we are involved in a lot of HR transformation in various organizations, be it HR strategy, HR audit, workforce planning and analytics, talent management, and HR systems and infrastructure, or team competence development, HR team competence development, L&D, all right? We have helped to build several academies and different corporate academies, as the case may be, for various organizations. So we're willing and ready to assist you in this area. In terms of our branding, we've been privileged to use these brands to serve very well. And come February next year, we'll have our annual HR conference that is coming up. We invite you to be a part of that session and to benefit yourself. I will take feedback and questions at this point in time. My name is Joel Omike. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have spoken to you and had conversations with you. Questions?
Yeah, good day, Mr. Joel. Can you hear me?
Very clearly, Ile.
Oh, that's nice. Good day, everyone. Well, it's been an exciting topic for me, especially based on logistics. And for all what has been said, it boils down to effective communication as a major factor in this topic, planning. So to achieve this, I believe communication, not just communication, effective communication, is a vital key to achieve both individual and organizational goal. Because when communication is not effective, we lack vital information to plan very well, thereby having loopholes in various activities and also having negative impacts in what we do. So that's just my little intake in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ile. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, more feedback, more questions. Thank you. Okay, so like we said, the entire presentation and also the recording will be made available to us also at the end of this session. Yes, please, your hand is raised. You can speak. Go ahead and speak. Orineru. If you can hear me, please speak. Or you can chat if you're not able to speak. Okay, so while we expect that particular feedback and response to come, we'll just take a final recap on what we have said in our session today. In the past 2 hours or thereabout, we have examined the fact that business strategy operates in a very difficult environment and difficult situations. So we invite you as much as possible when you're planning your retreats to be sure and clear about the deliverables and expectations, what you want to bring to the table at that point in time, assign responsibilities to various individuals, it is important that you document action points and learning points from the end of the retreat so that everybody can benefit from it. Follow through and ensure that you deliver as much results as possible, and then people can then engage and have a fine time. We went through 2 models. We went through the planning process of how to plan your retreat. We also went through the 4 stages of your planning process. And then we looked at some tools. We looked at the environmental analysis tool that you can use for your strategic planning. We also looked at the SWOT analysis, and we gave some questions that you can use to ask team members so that they can help you to document that. Then we also looked at barriers that you may have. We looked at action planning as another tool that you can use to achieve results in this particular area. Then we went through the playing to win methodology, a question-based approach to strategy development on how you can achieve that particular component and result. Then we looked at the success spectrum, how to ensure upfront what failure looks like so you can avoid it, what the minimum standard of expectation is, and what your target is, and if possible, the epic scenario at that point in time. And then we also saw the strategy culture bicycle. There is need for you to align them, and then you can achieve great results as much as possible. And then we'll say if you feel you can engage us and we can assist you to be able to move forward in this area. Thank you very much again for your time. I hope the session so far has been worth your time as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.